World Trade Center bombing or the embassy bombings and trying to see if any other figures there might be linked to anything that was planned for Tuesday or might be planned for the days to come.
Well, they started that in day one. We reported that on the first day. They were going back looking for clues because if you're starting with the premise that Osama bin Laden is the #1 suspect, then you're going to have to look at the past cases and connect them to this one. And certainly the top lieutenants in all of those cases are the same people because it's a tight-knit group. He doesn't deal with a lot of people. He's got a couple of top lieutenants, and its information is held closely. So if they can tie all of these together, it will really bolster all the cases. They can find out who bombed the USS Cole, perhaps, and solve this at the same time. It's going to be very difficult, though.
Do they, in understanding the web of Osama bin Laden, do they have any fix on the possibility of numbers, of how many people that are either tightly or loosely affiliated with his organization might be in the United States?
How many people might be in the United States?
Either tightly or loosely.
No, you know, for a few years I've been trying to get some figures on that, and we're talking about sleeper cells here, and these are people brought into the country by the Al-Qaeda organization, told to go to the United States, and they are here for years, and precisely because they're sleeper cells, they're like anybody else. You can't tell them apart from any normal citizen. It's very hard to get a count. We're working on that, though. I'm looking to get an answer on that, and I hope to have one here very shortly.
And people who might have been in this country for years. In other words, we think perhaps a terror operation would, say, come in and plan 6 weeks from now or 3 weeks from now. These operations might have been planned or outlooked or organized over months and years?
Look, we reported yesterday that the seeds for this may have been planted at an Islamic conference in Khartoum in the Sudan back in 1994 when a lot of the world's terrorists got together after the regular day business at this meeting. And we know that federal authorities, intelligence officials are looking at perhaps the seeds for everything we're seeing right now, from Khobar Towers, that bombing, to the USS Cole, to this present horrific terrorist attack in the United States. The seeds may have been planted there. So you're looking 6, 7 years before in a big concept, big picture. In terms of a USS Cole attack, could be 2 years, 3 years. These things are planned well in advance, and some of the people are put in years in advance.
CNN's national correspondent Mike Boettcher following up on all aspects of the investigation. Thanks very much, Mike. Wolf?
Thank you, Joey. And as investigators work to put together the pieces of the puzzle surrounding Tuesday's violence, they're finding a number of links between the suspected hijackers. CNN's Brent Sadler has more on the background of one man believed to have died when a plane he helped hijack crashed into a Pennsylvania field.
A possible White House suicide pilot or the face of an innocent passenger, 26-year-old Ziad Jarrah from Lebanon. The United States Justice Department says he was one of the hijackers on United Flight 93, which crashed in a field some 80 miles from Pittsburgh shortly after 3 other jets struck the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. Flight 93, whose passengers might have wrestled the hijackers, causing the plane to crash, could have been targeting the very heart of America and President Bush himself. In Lebanon's Bekaa Valley, though, Ziad Jarrah's family insists there's no hard evidence to prove any of that.
He never acted or talked in a way that you could have an understanding that he might be related to this.
In Germany, investigators now say the Technical University in Hamburg, with its now closed prayer room, is where Jarrah and 2 other alleged hijackers studied. Mohammed Atta, whom US authorities believe was aboard the first plane to hit the World Trade Center, and Marwan al-Shihi, flying in the second aircraft to hit the Twin Towers. Ziad Jarrah's family are Sunni Muslims, well-educated and well-to-do. They spoke of a young man whose personality, they claim, does not fit the profile of an Islamic fundamentalist bent on terror.
He has his girlfriend, he goes to nightclubs, he drinks sometimes. His way of life can't be related to these parts.
Ziad Jarrah's way of life away from home started in Germany. He began to study engineering 4 years ago on courses paid for by proud parents. Around a year ago, he told them he was in the United States, taking part in a Boeing Aircraft Corporation seminar related to his studies. After that, he returned to Hamburg, receiving more help from his parents to study. When he later told them he was in Florida, training as a pilot, they assumed all was well. His last call home came 2 days before the suicide attacks, when he thanked his ailing father for sending more money. His apartment manager says he paid cash weekly for one-bedroom accommodation and presented a German passport with a student visa. On May 2nd this year, he obtained a Florida driver's license. The same day, another terrorist suspect, Mohammed Atta, got his Florida driver's license. The only time he raised concern, they say, is when his Turkish girlfriend told them she thought he might have gone with friends to Afghanistan while they were separated for several weeks. The family says there's no proof of any trip to Afghanistan and are willing to cooperate with the international inquiry.
What happened is a tragedy, a catastrophe for all people, and we don't agree on these acts, and we are surprised and shocked of what happened.
The Lebanese authorities are stressing that neither the government nor its people at large have any link with the terror attacks against America, regardless of suspicions focused on one of its citizens. Standing ready, say officials here, to cooperate with investigations in any way they can. Brent Sadler, CNN, Beirut.
And joining us from New York now is our senior analyst, Jeff Greenfield. Jeff, I know you've been thinking about the consensus that seems to be developing in the United States right now, but inevitably there are going to be some serious differences. How will that affect this entire operation?
I think it's really important, Wolf, to understand that when, as it's inevitable, disagreements may be heard, it is not a sign of weakness. In fact, we may consider it a sign of strength. I mean, you go back to the Civil War, and within the North, Lincoln was severely criticized for the conduct of the war. He thought, until the tide of the war turned, he might even have been turned out of office for a second term. We think of World War II as the time of great unity, and yet in 1941, relatively just a couple of months or weeks before Pearl Harbor, a vote to extend the draft passed the House by one single vote. And even during the war, people in the Congress often were critical of Roosevelt for his conduct of the war. They raised objections to executive incursions on congressional authority. And think back again, Wolf, you covered this. When the Gulf War began, the vote in the Senate in 1991 to authorize the use of force was 52 to 47. But once the war started, there was unity. I think it's very important not to confuse a consensus that something should be done with the need for such kind of lockstep that if we hear disagreements or dissent, we think that the country's weak. It just doesn't work that way.
Is there going to be, in your opinion, is there going to be some serious dissension if, in fact, over the next few weeks and months, the U.S. is engaged in a serious, massive war?
Well, the first question is, of course, how well will things go? One of the reasons there was virtually no dissent once the Gulf War began was that it ran into no obstacles. The bombing of Baghdad followed by a 100-hour ground war with virtually no American casualties, some, but far fewer than we thought. There was no room for dissent. This, as we've all been told, is going to be a much more difficult operation, stretching out, we've just heard on your broadcast, over months, if not years. The likelihood of casualties are high, and Lord knows we've seen just behind me the prospect of casualties at home, which we've never experienced as high. And the question at that point is whether or not, if there are disagreements, if there are people who raise questions about how the war is conducted, it's going to be misinterpreted as a kind of broader discontent. I don't believe the country is going to be torn by dissension over the conduct of military operations. But when objections are heard to specific steps, I think we, taking some heart from our history, should understand it is actually part of the American tradition.
Jeff Greenfield in New York, thank you very much, as usual. Back to you, Joey.
Where the World Trade Center complex once stood, the massive rescue effort pushes on even at this hour. At last count, 152 bodies have been recovered from the site, and nearly 5,000 people are still listed as missing. So the workers continue to toil over an estimated 1.25 million tons of skyscraper debris. Joining us from very near the rescue site is CNN's Martin Savage. Tell us on the latest on the operations there. Marty.
Joy, it was another all-out day today by rescuers and searchers. It will be another all-out night. And it was another day when no survivors were pulled from the rubble. It is a problem here at this particular site, a problem that they would like to correct, seeing someone coming alive here. In addition to searching for survivors, the emergency officials are now telling their crews to be on the lookout for something else. Signs of stress, signs of strain, even the possibility of emotional breakdowns. Medical crews that have been out in the area say that emotional strain has been one of the most common maladies that they have been treating firefighters, police officers, and other rescuers today. Some of the New York City firefighters have not left this building, or what used to be the Twin Towers here, this site, since Tuesday, saying that there are simply too many of their own yet to be found. I talked to one firefighter who comes from Mechanicstown in New York, Tim Fazio, and he spoke about the very issue of morale.
Well, we still have a lot of brothers down there that, that are, hopefully we'll find them, but, and I think on the other victims, they're trying to keep an upbeat, but it's kind of hard too. But morale's trying to be up, trying to keep up there.
It was also a time today when hundreds of people gathered on corners here to await their turn to return to their apartments they had to flee on that day of terror last Tuesday. They all had to be escorted into the area where their now vacant apartments are, and they were given 10 minutes, just 10 minutes, to collect their things, Joey.
CNN's Martin Savage near Ground Zero. We want to move ahead now in New York City at this hour. Mayor Rudy Giuliani speaking about the rescue effort. Let's listen.
Feehan for Pete Gancy and for Father Judge, and unfortunately, it probably is an indication of what we're going to have to face in the future. But to each of their families, we give our support, love, and condolences. And look upon this as 3 people who have lost their lives as casualties of war. They're heroes. They're like the heroes that we had at Pearl Harbor. Each one of them was trying to save lives. Pete Gancy evacuated his men, sent them north out of danger. He turned around, walked back south into danger in order to get more men out, and was killed. Bill Feehan was directing the operation and wouldn't leave. And Father Judge was administering the last rites to someone at the time that he died. Those are wartime casualties by anybody's description. And they are they're 3 heroes, and there are many, many others. We're very happy that we've been able to get the command center up this quickly, because I think it has, first of all, has a tremendous amount of practical value. It allows us to coordinate things, the city, the state, the federal government, much more effectively. It has a lot of symbolic value also. The command center was destroyed by these cowards that attacked us. The command center was destroyed on Tuesday. We've been operating out of the police academy up until now, and we put together quickly a command center, but the command center has been rebuilt by Saturday and open and functioning. It's even bigger than the command center we had before, has more facilities, and I congratulate everybody who put this together, all of the people that worked on it, from the Office of Emergency Management, from OEM, and from the Economic Development Corporation that controlled this site, that had to work on it, and DCAS, and all of the people that have gotten this done. This is a miracle to have gotten this done as quickly as they did, and it's a great example of the fact that we can come back real quick and even better and stronger than we were before. We're very hopeful that we're going to continue to clean up the area and get things as back to normal as possible by Monday. The subway tests that we did today all seem to work, so there's no reason why they won't work tomorrow and the next day, and we can get more things open. The stock exchange will be